I'd like to start out with today is just going over some foundational things. Again, some of you have been here before, some of this is going to be a little bit review, and that's okay.
There we go. Very good. So why should we care about the soil? Well, I believe farming is a craft. And like any craft, a craftsman needs to understand the medium that they work with. Doesn't matter if we're a rancher, if we're a dairy farmer, if we're a hog farmer, a corn and beef producer, we all still work with the same medium. That medium is the soil. Just like a woodworker is going to be working with wood, somebody who's a welder knows how to do metal. If you're a potter, you're working with clay. We all work as farmers with the soil. Soil health is the key to our farm's profitability. It's also a bank account. We're either doing withdrawals from it or making deposits to it. It's part of our legacy as farmers, and it's going to be the inheritance that we leave the next generation. Soils is the basis of all life. Okay, all the activity down there in the soil is what's building the rest of the food chains that sustain life on this planet. So it's utterly critical that we have a good, solid foundation there. There's three main realms to the soil that we focus on: the physical, the chemical, and the biological. Most of the work historically has been in the chemical and the physical. The physical mostly has to do with particulate size and the percentage of that and how it relates and how we identify our different soil types. And if you're a soil scientist, forgive me, I'm going a little fast here, but we're not going to dive too deep into some of these things. The chemical piece has been a huge area of focus. Everything from pH to cation exchange capacity, even how we formulate our fertilization of the soil. Just lots and lots of emphasis on that over the years, and it's given us some of the great yields and production increases we've seen in agriculture. But now here comes this biological piece, something that's been a little bit mysterious. We don't all carry microscopes out to the field with us, although there are a few soil scientists that do workshops that just about have their farmers convinced to carry microscopes out into the field, and that's something that might be worth thinking about. But this whole interaction, this whole especially microscopic world and what's going on there in the last really 10, 15, 20 years, the window's really been opened on, and we've learned a lot of things and what impacts that has to our production and to agriculture. And we're going to spend a lot of time on that in the next 2 days here. So what is soil health? I always like to define this because it's a term that's, I think, on the verge of being co-opted in some cases. And so I like to define it as soil function. Okay? The ability of our soil to capture and store water, and the ability to cycle nutrients. Okay? I think that's key that we define that. And when we get all three of these realms working together in unison or in harmony, that's where we start to see soil health come together. Critical to this is the role microbes play. 85 to 90% of soil function is mediated by soil microbial activity. That's something we've only learned recently, and yet that's a pretty substantial number and something I think is worth paying attention to. So for soil to function properly, a few things need to happen. We need an active soil biology, obviously, but then we need a critical mass of that biology in order for it to happen, in order for things to work. Oops. Behind there, sorry. We also need some balances out there. We need a balanced fungal-bacterial ratio, and we need a balance between our predator and prey ratios in order for things to start working correctly. And it takes time to build this. Most of us in agriculture are working with fields that have been farmed one way or another for decades. And if we as a producer want to move this direction, I think a lot of times we think it's going to happen overnight, and it's not. It takes time for things to rebuild, it takes time for things to heal, it takes time for things to balance out. So I just tuck that in the back of your head. You may get some great ideas here today and tomorrow. You're going to have some great speakers to listen to and hear from. And we like the enthusiasm going out the door, but just recognize it's going to take time to get things really rolling in your particular situation. And everybody's situation is different. So here's what we're after. Good soil structure. You know, we've heard the analogies. It looks like chocolate cake. It looks like dark cottage cheese. Lots of different analogies out there. That's really what we're after. That's what we want to see, because that's where we start to see those soil functions coming together. It's because of these pore spaces that are held together by organic material, and that organic material being glomalin. Glomalin was discovered by Sarah Wright. We took this picture almost 20 years ago here. We really didn't know what this was all about, and yet it's actually absolutely critical to building soil aggregate structure. So what is glomalin? Microbes secrete the glomalin, and it's a sort of biotic glue. It's a carbon-based material. Okay, so it's going to be what color is carbon? Elemental carbon is black. Okay, so it's going to be dark. And it becomes that glue that holds these aggregates together, creating those pore spaces that allow for water and air to be part of that system. And we need the water and air to be part of that soil ecosystem in order for it to function correctly. And one of the more important microbes that are out there in relation to glomalin is mycorrhizal fungi. Not the only important microbe out there, but one of the most important ones we're finding is mycorrhizal fungi, if we have to pick one. One of the services, or one of the functions that mycorrhizal fungi do, is create these fungal hyphae. One simple way to think of it is an extension of your root system, of your plants. They do that for us, and that's extremely valuable for our agricultural production. So how do we promote soil health? That's really the big question we're after here. This other stuff is kind of background. Well, really it just comes down to providing a home, or a habitat, if you will, for these soil microbes. Here's some things we can do inside your folder, and on the back of your folder are the 5 principles, or 5 tenets of soil health. And it's kind of amazing that something so complicated, the solution to addressing this, can be literally put on something the size of a business card. I think there's beauty in that simplicity. So let's break down these 5 principles of soil health. Number 1, keep the soil covered. This is a picture of a complex cover crop that was grazed in November. Evidence there by the cow pie with the cow hoof print mark in it up there in the corner. But you'll see there's no bare soil here. That soil is completely covered. Why is that important? Well, this is a picture of a raindrop hitting bare and exposed soil. Raindrops hit at about 20 miles per hour. What's erosion? Erosion is soil movement. Do we have soil movement here? This is a magnified photograph of a single raindrop, okay, hitting that bare soil. Now let's multiply that tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, even millions of times over a piece of ground that's bare and exposed. We have soil movement there, and that's not working in our favor. Here's a picture Scott Hayes, who's the next speaker today, took a little over a year ago on a sunny day, bare field, thermometer showing 100 degrees, no covers on that, and just moments later on a field that had covers on it, thermometer showing 80 degrees. Soil microbes like temperatures about like what we like. We're all pretty comfortable in here today. It's probably around 68, 70 degrees. Microbes like that too, but when temperatures start getting into the 90s and even into the hundreds, as we see can easily happen on a sunny day on bare soil, they start to get uncomfortable. They start to get stressed. And as that temperature rises, they get even more stressed. And at 140 degrees, that's low temperature pasteurization. They die. So covers are important for mediating that, creating that positive home for those soil microbes. Number 2, minimizing soil disturbance. I think a good analogy to soil disturbance is kind of like a tornado going through your farm. It leaves chaos behind, and we're not real comfortable with that. Oops, excuse me. Tillage does the same thing, I think, to the microbial world. Creates chaos for them. It's highly destructive. We know for some of the microbes, like soil mycorrhizal fungi, it does not handle that very well at all. So we want to think through, how can we minimize our tillage? Now for many of us, this is going to be something like no-till or strip-till or some one of the conservation tillage techniques. But it could also be extending a rotation by building perennials into our rotation so that we're not tilling that piece of ground in any given year. This is some data that was put together by Bob Rick of Farm Business Management. He heard a presentation that I did last August and was intrigued on, what does this mean in dollars and cents? How many people are familiar with Farm Business Management in Minnesota? Tom, you better be. Farm Business Management works with producers to help them just look at cash flows and help manage their finances. And all this data is public through FinBin right here, so you can go in and do your own queries and sorts on this. Well, Bob was so intrigued by some of the things we were talking about, he went into the FinBin data and he did a query or a sort for own corn ground and then looked at what's the value or what's the net return on different tillage systems and what's the yield on different tillage systems. And so he looked at conventional till, chisel reduced till, no-till, ridge till. Anybody here old enough to remember ridge till? There's actually still a few people out there who do it. That's pre-Roundup ready corn days. And then strip till. And he looked at 2015 yields, 2015 net return per acre, and then a 10-year yield per acre and a 10-year net return per acre. And yields, conventional 196, chisel 200, no-till 187. Ridge till, we get a little bump there at 215, and strip till at 197. Net return per acre and conventional is 42. But jump over here to ridge till, 145. Look at strip till. We get another $24 an acre net right there. Now that's just 1 year. Let's drop down here to 10 years, and conventional's 186. 173, 173, 175, 174, pretty consistent across there, not a huge difference. He didn't run any statistical analysis on this. But look at our net returns here. 199, and we jump over to here to strip till at the other end of the spectrum at 250, an acre net return. Okay. He also looked at soybeans, different tillage systems. Again, what's the value of reduced tillage versus conventional tillage? And so here we've got conventional at 54 and strip till at 60, ridge till at 63, and just about everything in between here. Net returns per acre, we run everywhere from 78 on conventional to 178 on ridge till. And we can drop, I'm just going to drop down here to the net return, because during low commodity prices, this is what everybody seems to be very concerned about. A 169 in conventional, and we're up here under strip till and ridge till in the 200s. With $3 corn, which we were dealing with $3.50 corn for most people in 2015, that starts to add up over your acres. It starts putting some dollars to some of these practices that not only are building soil health, but can also have the potential to make you more money as a producer. Number 3, increase crop diversity. So we've got 4 major crop types: warm season grass, warm season broadleaves, cool season grass, cool season broadleaves. And there's some examples up here of that. What we like to see is at least one representative of each of these 4 major crop types in the course of a rotation. More is better. And we'll talk about more is better here as we go. There's some good data I think you're going to hear here today and tomorrow on that. But it does promote a diverse soil microbe population. Some microbes are only associated with specific plant species. We see this primarily in mycorrhizal fungi. There's specific species of mycorrhizal fungi that are only associated with specific plants. So the more diversity we build into the system, the more diversity we have in our microbe population. And this promotes crop production and ultimately reduce input costs. A couple examples of this. One example is a study that just came out of Penn State this last year. And I'm going to give you another example on off of a farm here. This is actually my place here in a moment. But what they found is as they increased diversity of plants in a perennial pasture mix, they saw an average of 31% increase in forage production over 9 years. Just because of the increase in diversity in that forage planting from two species to 5. This is on my own farm. The field on your left here, 4 years before in 2010, we rotated that out and put it in a warm season cover crop for a season. That was grazed a couple times, and we replanted it to an 8-way perennial pasture mix, 8 species perennial pasture mix. This field's just been pasture hay ground for, I think this is its 17th or 18th year, maybe even more than that now. I lost track. But anyway, this field on your left here was grazed 2 weeks before this picture was taken. Temperatures were in the 80s every day during those 2 weeks. This field has not been grazed. Other than rotating this field out and putting in a warm season cover crop and then planting it to this 8-way pasture mix, the management on these 2 fields has essentially been the same. This field's actually probably had more fertility put on it, probably to the tune of about 4 or 5 ton an acre more manure on it than this field has had. 2 weeks after this picture was taken, I took 2.2 ton an acre dry matter of hay off of this field. Still haven't done anything over here. There wasn't enough to do anything with. End of July, came back and grazed this again. Finally had enough production over here to feel that it was worth running cattle over there, and I finally got around to grazing that in July. Came back the end of September and grazed this field again, looking over the fence at this field going, man, there's not much out there. But I ran them across it pretty fast anyway. I mean, there wasn't that much. But this field at the end of September looked like that. The other fields still look not much better than that. The only difference in management on what I had done on that was increased diversity of plants on this side of the fence. I think that's a pretty powerful statement. I've actually increased my diversity more on some other fields, and I'm even seeing more forage production than I'm seeing here. This field's still in production. We're coming into 2017, so that'll be, there's 6 seasons that we've seen a very high level of production over here, and I believe a lot of it's just a result of that diversity. Another example of the power of diversity out there. This picture's from Brown's Ranch, Gabe and Paul Brown's Ranch out in Burleigh County, North Dakota. Some of you may have been out there. This picture was taken on August 20th. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, it's 100 degrees out there. This field was planted to a 29-way cover crop mix on June 26th, and it's only received 4/10 of an inch of rain since June 26th. Now, what do most of our cool season pastures look like on August 20th on a 100-degree day when it's only had 4/10 of an inch of rain since the 26th of June? Probably nowhere near like this. I mean, those aren't calves. Those are adult Angus cows. There's a lot of feed out there. You can see it's hot. The plants are stressed, but there's a lot of feed out there. Those animals are putting gain on, and if they got calves outside, those cows are making milk. Number 4, keep a living root in the soil. The free energy from the sun and the free carbon dioxide in the air through the miraculous process of photosynthesis is giving us sugars, energy, carbohydrates, whatever term you want to use, that's running this whole system. It's carbon that's fueling the whole system. And we need a living plant to do this. And most of our microbial activity is happening at or near the soil surface and in association with a living root. This doesn't happen without a living plant, without a living root. We're not feeding those microbes what they need without a living root. Some of the value of living cover. We've already talked about microbial activity happening at or near the soil surface and associated with a living root. One of the benefits of this is, and you're going to hear more about this today and tomorrow, is The ability of equipment to go out on these fields and having a living root on when conditions are wet. And I think a lot of us in Minnesota experienced wet conditions this last year, particularly in July and August. And you're going to hear some pretty good examples of how valuable this was on getting field work done in a timely manner. Just the ability to sort that or support that equipment. There's been some work over here in Breckenridge. Maybe the producers in the room, if you are, great, share your story. But I've heard they've started to utilize cereal rye on those heavy Red River Valley clay soils, and they're able to get in the field now sooner because of that rye cover crop than most of their neighbors are. It's just helping them be more timely, and we all know timing is so critical. In agricultural production. You know, how do we start putting a number on some of this stuff? It's amazing. We're also seeing more and more data on spring soil temperatures being higher on fields that have a living root associated with them. 1 to 4 degrees warmer than tilled soils. Conventional thought has been the tilled soils are going to warm up faster, but the data is showing something much different. And we're seeing this in many, many places. Minnesota, Wisconsin, the Dakotas, and so on. Lots of ways to do this, lots of ways, you're going to hear lots of examples in the next day and a half here. One of the ways is interseeding cover crops into a row crop field. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that because more people will talk about that. Double cropping systems. Lots of different ways to do this. I'm just going to present one example. You're probably going to hear more in the next day and a half. This is a field that the producer wanted to renovate. It was hay ground. The alfalfa was petering it out. It had been in hay for about 10 years. So he took first crop hay off, and then while those plants were stressed, he went in and terminated the stand and planted I think this was 10-way cover crop mix into that field, and he let this grow. You can see the leaves are starting to turn here, so this is around the 1st of October in central Minnesota. He let this go until November, and he put cattle out here in November and grazed to the middle of December. He kept a living root out on that field, other than for the few short days that this was getting seeded and allowed to germinate. So just one example. You're going to hear more in the next couple days. Another way of keeping a living root in the soil is just, again, perennial crops in the rotation. You know, we've gotten pretty specialized in our agricultural systems. You know, I'm a dairy farmer, you're a corn farmer, whatever. But this is an option to think about. Some of these old ideas still have validity for building soil health, and perennials can go a long way to help us to do that. Number 5, integrated livestock. We're going to spend a lot of time on this in the next couple days. Farah Bruner, over at NDSU, was recently quoted as saying, "Livestock are the missing link in soil health," and I couldn't agree with her more. I think they're absolutely critical, and you're going to see some data today and tomorrow, on the value of this. There are lots of ways to do this. We can use managed grazing on perennial systems. We can incorporate livestock after row crops are harvested to glean those systems. We can turn livestock out on row crop systems that have had a cover crop interseeded with them for the purpose of grazing, as well as to keep a living root out there. Or we can even do something in the winter without wintering. And there's lots of different ways to do that, lots of different techniques for doing that. This happens to be bale grazing, one of the more popular ones in Minnesota. We can integrate livestock this way, and there's some value there. I don't know that we're going to get the full bang for a buck that we can with that animal impact, but we're getting manure out there, and there's some value in that. And Bob Rick from Farm Business Management, again, when he was looking at tillage systems and what the value of that might be, he also went in to look at what's the value of manure in our cropping systems. So again, 2015 data and he did 5-year data here. Manure plus some commercial fertilizer, and then no manure. Yields, pretty similar, tad over 200 bushel an acre. But look at net return here for manure. $97 an acre versus $7 an acre with no manure. Wow. Let's go to the 5-year. 249, 184. Yields are pretty similar. 175, 176, 177. It really starts to add up. There's some value to those livestock. Again, here's soybeans, Not quite as dramatic as we might expect. You know, high 50s for 2015, roughly on average for yield. But look at with manure, $148 an acre net return versus 98. Those are some real dollars. This is real data. This is all Minnesota data here, and you can go in and look at this stuff yourself. But I think it's painting a picture for us, a picture that we can find some value in this and put some economic numbers to just the value of livestock integration in our cropping systems. So we know that managed livestock impact promotes soil microbes. It's not just the process of grazing, but we've got saliva coming off those cows' mouths. We've got urine coming out as well as manure coming out the back end of those animals. We have hoof impact. We even have milk foam dripping off the chin of that calf that's nursing on that cow, or off that lamb that's nursing off that ewe. Maybe even shed hair has value to those microbes that we haven't fully identified the value of that. But that's all part of that animal impact that adds to the value of livestock integration into our cropping systems. Lots of different ways to do this, because some of you may be sitting there going, well, gee, can't we have any livestock in our place in 40 years, you know, since Grandpa passed away? And it's like, I get that, I understand that. But we've got some techniques and some tools and some technologies available to you that we're going to highlight while we're here. One of those is some people, Jeff Duchesne from the NRCS, and myself and Kelly Anderson from Minnesota Department of Ag, and some other NRCS and MDA folks put together what's called the Cropland Grazing Exchange. And Kelly's going to talk about that this evening, and she's got a booth out there to live demo this. I'm not going to steal her thunder, but if you don't have livestock, or even if you do have livestock, this is a tool that can help farmers work together to identify places to get livestock back out on the landscape. And that's going, it's in a demo phase now. It's going live in March. Kelly will tell you more about that here in a couple hours. Custom grazing leases. This is something else we're working with people on. You're going to hear about this one tomorrow. 193 cow-calf pairs on several hundred acres of cropland that happened this last fall. A couple of you have been out to this site and participated in this. We're going to hear more about that later on. There are templates available online through the Greenland's Blue Waters group. They have a Perennial Forage Group working page, and there are templates on there where you can go in and get ideas and examples on how to put together custom grazing leases. So if you're a row crop producer, you don't have livestock, but you go to the Cropland Grazing Exchange and see, hey, there's somebody 20 miles down the road and they're willing to move livestock my direction. There's templates and examples available to you to help negotiate out how all the little details are going to work. Everything from fencing to water to so on and so forth. So those tools are available to you. Another tool that's, people go, well, that's great. That all sounds really good. Like the idea, but you know what? We ripped out the fences 35 years ago. Yep, I get that. Well, we've got some new technologies available for you. One is we're using, getting a lot of use out of, is a semi-permanent 2-strand 14-gauge high-tensile energized fence. Okay, pretty simple to put up. You're looking at under 40 cents a linear foot for materials. If you haven't priced fence materials these days, that's actually a pretty sweet deal. It goes up pretty fast. The wires are at 30 or 40 inches above grade. We're just using a 6-inch by 8-foot treated posts at 48 inches in the ground for corners and ends. These are negotiable if they stay in or go out. This can be wound up fairly easily too. There are PTO-driven wire winders that mount on the 3-point on your tractor, or there's people who have done it by hand. I'm one of them. I've done it by hand. It's not too bad. We wound up 50 acres of wire one time, 2 of us in an afternoon, so it's not too bad. Line posts. Clank, clank. We're using 7/8-inch fiberglass, 5 feet long. I brought an old beat up one just to show you if anybody wants to come and have a look at it later and how these things hold up. This one here is at least 15 years old. I use these every day, all day during the grazing, all summer long during the grazing season. And, you know, people go, well, that's fiberglass. It's going to poke splinters in my hand. This one's 15 years old and it's not too bad. Pretty easy to put in. Custom made post driver. It's just made with a piece of 1-inch pipe with a plug in the end. And when I tap this 5-foot piece of post in the ground, so the bottom of this post driver hits the ground, every post is exactly the height I want it. And in most soil types, I can pound this in with one hand. If you grew up driving steel T-posts in the ground, you'll really appreciate this. Yeah. So if you want to have a look at that, we'll have that up here. It's just one of the technologies. You don't have to do it this way, but we're just offering ideas to make all these things doable for people and as user-friendly as we possibly can. Another question we get is, okay, so I've heard about these complex cover crops and grazing them late in the year, October, November, December, January. Well, what's the feed value of that stuff? Well, this is down at Dan Tiffany's. That's Dan, a man out standing in his field. And this picture was taken on November 12th of 2015. And the day we took this picture, we went out and pulled some forage samples because his animals were just going in to this field, and he was curious what the feed value of that was. RFQ 179. Total digestible nutrients 65, crude protein 17, 30-hour net energy for lactation 0.68, excuse me. For those of you who are livestock people, you understand those numbers. For those of you who aren't livestock people, we could turn the Holsteins out in this stuff and they'd milk. Your TMR should come out this good. These are really, really, really good numbers. This is top quality feed. It's been frozen a couple times. And you're going to hear some more examples in the next day or two. I'm leaving you all in suspense. I'm telling you all these things that are going to happen, but that's part of this talk. Some people who have worked with stuff like this and what they're seeing on animal performance. So stay tuned. But it's pretty powerful stuff. In your packets, if you open up your folders that you've got, you'll see a couple handouts in there that look like this on the front. I want to spend a moment on this because this is very, very important. If you're looking at integrating livestock into an existing cropping system, I'd encourage you to do some research on what the herbicide history has been on that field. There are some herbicides that have very, very long withholdings on them, withdrawals on them, especially some of the pre-emergence for soybeans. Those are the ones we got to watch the most. The charts in front of you, there's one for corn and one for soybeans. They're from Practical Farmers of Iowa. This is not every herbicide on the market and not every herbicide being used. These are like some of the most common, and they use farmer input to find out what some of the most common ones are out there. And then they went in and checked the label to see if there are any withdrawal periods on certain, forages for livestock consumption. You really need to go back to the label. This is kind of a cheat sheet to help speed you through some of the more common ones. So I'd encourage you, if you're going to work with somebody else or you're going to start integrating livestock in your own system and there hasn't been livestock or you haven't grown forages on that ground in the past, go back and check the label. This can speed the process up a little bit, but you need to check the label. And really keep an eye on particularly those pre-emergence for soybeans. Those are some, we have some withholding periods on certain forage crops, not on all of them, but on certain forage crops of 48 months. That's 4 years. 4 years. So be really careful that you check that out. I'm not trying to scare you, I just want to make you aware of that. That's why we put these in your folder to remind you and give you a starting point to go back as you're researching some of these herbicides to see if there's going to be any conflict in your particular situation. Okay? Something to keep in mind and check on. I just don't want to, I want to talk on cover crops a little bit because we can hardly open an ag publication these days and not see an article on cover crops, soil health, no-till, grazing. That's great. I absolutely love it. I think that's just phenomenal. But I think cover crops and some of these articles are being sold as a silver bullet, and I don't think they are. I think they're a powerful tool that can move us forward to address a lot of resource concerns. They can help us address a lot of the principles of implementing soil health. They work best when they're managed as a crop. Okay, we just can't go throw them out there and expect miracles. I mean, we see pictures, you know, the guy in the ag, you know, successful farming holding up the tillage radish, you know, he's like he's holding up a big muskie or something like that, you know. I mean, that's pretty cool, but we've got to treat these things like a crop. We need good seed-to-soil contact. We may, in some low-fertility soils, might need a little dab of fertilizer early on to get these things going, depending on your situation. Okay, but treat them like a crop. They work best in conjunction with other techniques. Okay, no-till, diverse crop rotation. That's where you're going to get your most bang for your buck. And one of the easiest ways to reimburse or recoup your costs in the cover crop is by running livestock across it and using it as a forage. And it is a great way to integrate livestock. So base your selection of your cover crop on a couple things. What are your goals for that particular field? Do you have erosion concerns? Do you have compaction issues you're trying to deal with? Do you have low organic matter in that field? Do you want to graze those livestock out there in November or December, or use it as a place to wean calves, or run dairy replacement heifers as a cheap feed source? Okay? Think about what your goals are, and also think about the biological, chemical, we already talked the herbicide piece a little bit, physical, social, and economic factors that are influencing the management of that field. Okay? These things often play into that in a very, very big way. And I think we think about these things as we're doing our crop planning anyway. We just maybe aren't conscious about it so often. If this is all new to you, cover crops are new to you, I'm going to give you a couple resources here that are free, easy to tap into. This is from the Mandan ARS laboratory. If you just, in your web search engine on your computer, just type in Mandan ARS. And then go to their cover crop chart. This is what you're going to get. You download it as a PDF file. And if you don't know your brassicas from your legumes, you know, this is a great place to start. Okay? And it's got all this charted out. It kind of reminds you of the periodic table of elements we all had in high school chemistry. And you can click on, you know, any one of these once you download it. So let's say you want to learn a little bit more about turnips. Okay? I can see here that they're a cool season and they're a broadleaf, but if I click on that, I'm going to get a whole page of information on turnips. And then I can click back to this and check on something else. So it's a handy little tool. It's absolutely free. This is actually the old one. They've updated it. There's a few changes to it. So I'd encourage you, you got access to a computer, download that. Another one, and I'm going to see if my live link will work here. It's not going to work. This is another one. It's Midwest Cover Crop Council. You just type that into your search engine, Midwest Cover Crop Council. This thing is like an online encyclopedia of cover crops. There's volumes of information here. If you know nothing about cereal rye, if you know nothing about daikon radishes, if you know nothing about sorghum Sudan grass, this is a great place to go. And you can get in there and literally spend hours and hours and hours. There's still some long winter evenings left. So here's some good reading for you if you want to learn a little about these things. But there's just a host of information in here. And they also have a decision-making tool in here that you can go into and play around with. If you're into vegetable production, there's one for that. And if you're into row crops, there's a different one for that. And you can go in and plug in some things, and it'll start giving you some guidelines on what might work in your particular situation. You identify 3 goals. There you identify your county and your state, and it'll give you a chart with potential planting dates and what may or may not work, and give you some rankings of those different cover crops. So I'd encourage you to go in and play around with that. There's another tool. I'm going to leave now because I think one of the other speakers is going to talk about that one. That's out there for you, and you'll be getting more information on that probably tomorrow here. So with that, I'm going to open it up to any questions.